cycling has always just been there in my life. I think the first memory I have goes back to being 3 years old at my grandmother's house in France and just taking a bike and taking the stabilizers and taking them off and just riding around the garden.
My very first memory was when my dad took me, I was probably, 6 years old, and he took me to a little trip around town and around the neighborhood.
The really first memory from bicycling is like my first proper bike, I think. An orange two-wheeled Crescent, which is a Swedish brand, with like a elongated saddle, not a normal saddle, and you pedal with pedals fixed on your front wheel, but then again a little bit later just racing around in the neighborhood with the other guys, the other kids where I grew up. Black and white on the screen.
Roots nasce dall'esigenza di tornare alle proprie origini, quindi questo per noi vuol dire andare a vedere dove ancora oggi vengono prodotte a mano le nostre selle, e quindi voleva dire attraversare l'Europa per arrivare finalmente a Birmingham. Non sarà un viaggio semplice, è un viaggio che nasce con l'idea di attraversare più paesi possibili e di andare anche a toccare un po' di punti che sono quelli iconici ciclistici. Quindi si passerà per le Alpi, perché le Alpi sono il posto dove tutte le persone, diciamo, sognano anche di pedalare, sono state sede di vittorie, di grandi battaglie, insomma sono proprio un posto mitico. Dopodiché si passerà per Austria, andremo per la Germania, attraverseremo la Foresta Nera o Schengen, che è anche un posto simbolico, per toccare il Lussemburgo, fare un po' zig-zag tra Francia e Belgio, il pavé della Roubaix, sui cobbles del Giro delle Fiandre, fino ad arrivare alla Manica. Dovremo poi arrivare insomma in Inghilterra, e qua prenderemo un traghetto per arrivare fino a Birmingham attraversando Londra. Magnus per me è un vichingo, ok? Voglio vedere se veramente è un vichingo di quelli veri, voglio vedere se invece Tiago, che arriva dal Brasile, avrà questo spirito più festaiolo o contrario, insomma. Poi insomma è una persona che fa le birre. E Will invece vedremo se effettivamente sarà la persona che dovrà tenere sempre il morale alto, insomma, tutto è curioso e vedremo.
Look at the bell of the church. It's time, 9 o'clock.
So I was born with a club foot on my right leg, and it really sort of affects kind of a lot of things. I can't, walk massively far, but one thing I've always found with cycling was much easier. Growing up, I spent 2 years in a wheelchair. During different operations, I've had like nine or 10 different surgeries. But throughout that, I could always kind of just about ride a bike, either through using one leg more than the other, which is like kind of visible now. But yeah, over time, I think it's been kind of quite instrumental in the way in which I ride a bike. I'm not necessarily someone who's like driven to be the fastest. I just want to push the horizons of what I can do and what I know I can't do, because I think it's all too easy to get caught up in what's not possible. I know I say this on a boat whilst I'm not riding, but if anyone had told me at the age of 7, when I had just had my first operation that was, pretty serious in terms of, scale, that, I would be someone who would be able to ride across a continent or to, cross the Alps in 3 days on a bike, I would have said that they were absolutely mad. So, being able to do it is quite good fun, even though it hurts.
For me, the bicycle became a little raft for doing adventures. Even if the first kind of adventure I did was just to the close by forest, like 2 km from where I live. Maybe you got some lemonade and some cinnamon rolls from your mother. You rode down to the forest. Then I also started doing like short trips with a very basic tent in the late 70s. Yeah, that would be my first like bicycle adventures. I use my bike every day, or one of my bikes every day, for just going to the shops as an exercise. Bike is really important to me, to experience nature, to feel free, and also it's my main mode of transportation.
Cycling in Brazil for us has always been just going on the weekend and mountain biking in the mountains, and that was, I didn't discover using the bicycle every day not until when I moved to Rome in 2009, and from then on I was decided to use the bicycle every day. For me, it was just freedom to move, and I started using it every day. And from then I started thinking maybe I can use this also for traveling. And my first trip on the bicycle, multi-day trip, was when I left Rome and I did the Via Salaria from Rome to San Benedetto del Tronto and back. And that was incredible. I didn't have any preparation, I was with shorts, like football clothes, and not prepared for the rain. It was in April as well, like very cold in the mountains. And when I went on the Passo delle Campanelle on the Gran Sasso in central Italy, it was crazy weather. I thought I wasn't gonna survive that one, but after that, and I passed that test, and I thought, okay, I can do this. It's probably possible to travel by bicycle.
Un'altra delle difficoltà sarà sicuramente quella di non conoscerci e quindi di non sapere neanche su chi poter fare affidamento in caso di qualche problema. Insomma, quando vai in bicicletta con gli amici sai già che c'hai quello che ti aiuta se hai un problema meccanico, sai già che c'è quello che invece ha la gamba più forte, allora ti aiuta magari quando c'è vento. E qua invece sarà un bel punto di domanda. L'importante in un viaggio del genere è comunicare, ma sempre, sia quando stai pedalando e hai qualche problema, quindi devi alzare la mano, O banalmente se tu stai bene ti giri e chiedi al tuo compagno come sta, se lui ha bisogno di una mano, ecco.
Normally, I try to get hosted by local people where they can talk a bit about their culture and have a moment of eating with them, have a moment of hearing about their stories. And that is a way I like traveling.
I think one of the biggest things you learn when you're spending time on the road is just that people are good. People want to help you. People want to speak to you, to learn more about where you're from and what you're doing and why you're doing it. People sort of open doors that perhaps they wouldn't necessarily if you are inside like normal means of travel or just, you know, inside the same bubble that everyone else lives in. You can find inspiration and you can, you know, choose new directions wherever you go. And yeah, broadly thinking that people are good.
So I really like to go on a solo bike trip. You're alone with you're alone in your head. You can sort things out. But at the same time, going with friends or as this time with completely strangers who has, for me, has grown to be friends, it has another dimension. You hear about their experiences and their thoughts. So it's really nice to do a mixture of both, I think.
For me, it's always been an individual moment with myself. I always cycled when I did the trip around Europe. I was a year and a half cycling by myself, living on a tent by myself. So I got to spend a lot of time with myself. And that was very good for me. It's not that I don't enjoy cycling with other people. This experience of this trip for me is incredible because it's a multi-day trip with people I don't know, and I get to enjoy this time with them, and it's great as well.
There's a saying, I think it was Ernest Hemingway, who said that it's only by bicycle you really can experience your surroundings and the nature. You have to like pedal up the hill, and you can coast and roll down them. And in a car, you're only impressed by the really highest mountains. But on a bike, you can really experience with all of your senses the nature, the smells, the sounds of the birds. So yeah, there is a really close connection with bicycling and nature for me.
It's hard, really bloody hard. It's just so rewarding in the weirdest of ways. It's, you know, down to talking to people you'd have never met in a million years, to stopping at, you know, little cafes and you know, speaking to people who hang around there and spend far too much time drinking espressos, or just encountering things that you don't see in your daily life because you take different choices, or taking the choices that you're constrained to do so because the options are so limited at certain points. You know, like taking the hill road, or like the hilly path to the top of the climb, rather than, you know, taking a longer route around it. But then at the top of the climb, you know, you meet someone who says, "Wow, where have you come from? This is so amazing to see you. I've never met anyone who's done that." Or, you know, people being just so astounded by the idea of someone traveling far on a bicycle. I think, you know, for me, that's why I wanted to be part of this. I think, you know, I think trips by bike are just, they're incomparable with other ways of traveling because you feel it. It's real. You're part of it, and it's painful sometimes, but it's also really, really just incredible.
We can go across the whole continent in 2 weeks, and we get to taste all these foods. We see the difference. Where every time we cross a border, we see that difference. We feel it. It's very exciting every time. The language changes. We start talking another language. We start tasting different foods, seeing how the small details change culturally, and that is how we perceive it.
Traveling with people from different countries whilst you're traveling across a continent is so fascinating, because when you're moving at the pace of a bike, you see so much stuff. You take on all this new information just coming in visually as you ride, and having different takes on it, having different perspectives. You know, moving from Southern Europe to Northern Europe as we cross the Alps, and see that playing out as you move across, you get a feel and a real sense of place that you're really crossing a space, and not just that, but traversing cultures. That's just unbelievable. Go to supermarkets, always go to supermarkets, because you're going to see the most amazing changes for even the shortest distances as you travel. And it's fascinating.
The ability we have to travel across borders. Today, for example, we have been in Belgium, France, crossed the borders like 5 or 6 times. It is really a precious thing.
totally soaked in the morning. First 1 hour and a half, stuff. The hands were freezing. You could feel the fingers, and then after we stopped, the rain stopped, got warmed up, and then go. Another 100 kilometers done.
Exactly what you want when you're in that situation is to then head into a headwind and 1 degrees with like tipping rain. That's perfect. So after about like an hour and a half, I think I was getting quite quickly to a place where I was not being able to sort of keep the wheel and slowing things down. And I know from personal experience that when you're on the bike in those conditions, the most important thing is to, if you can, keep going. And for me, I was arriving at a point where, just through fatigue, through just different niggles and pains, for me, I didn't want to put the guys through waiting around for me.
Yeah, it was quite hard the first an hour and a half because it was raining and quite cold. So after that, it was okay.
Too many problems. A lot of rain. The weather was fucking incredible, and we find, I think, 4 seasons in a day.
I think that trip for me, physically and mentally, has been really nice. I had 2 punctures. I have had 2 punctures so far, the only one in the group. But otherwise from that, I feel really good.
It's very challenging, and it requires people with very positive attitude, that don't focus too much on the problems, but focus on the solutions. Requires people that have the good mood, that keep on positive, and if there's a problem, we talk about it. We don't carry on with a sad face. We just say, hey guys, we agree on this, let's go for it, and we keep on pushing. And it has to work like a team, right? It has to work everybody together, because when we're on a train there, when we get on in a group, we go much faster together.
Champagne. Yeah. I have to do 60 more. 1866.
1866. It's kind of sad that this 13 days has come to an end, but actually most importantly, the relationship that we have created, the riders, there are for sure a lot of really amazing parts of the road during, like, oh, there are so many like little spots that I've saved back in my head of really amazing pieces of nature, amazing road, a warm feeling in my heart, as well as like the little bitter note of knowing that I might not see you guys again.
I spent day and night with these three guys, and I never spent that much time with anybody, not even with my girlfriend. All this 24 hours a day next to each other, and people from different cultures, people from different ways of seeing things, and I think we learn to keep working together for this goal, and also learn to know amazing people. That's what I take as the most important thing for at the end of the trip.
You always get to the end of a trip like this and there's a relief that you don't have to wake up tomorrow and keep going for another 8 hours. But at the same time, it's also sort of sad because you've met so many people, you've been sort of just outside and enjoying the freedom of everything. And then, you know, made great friends with Tiago, with Magnus, with Stefano, and then you don't see them again, which is really, really bizarre. And yeah, having literally, you know, shared rooms across half of Europe, and you're like, wow, this is really nuts. Like, these are fantastic people. So it's mixed emotions. It's just incredible to have done something that I don't think most people would think about doing. And then also the second side of it, which is just, yeah, to have those memories in your back pocket and yeah, to smile about all the things that you actually went and did, whereas you've got another story to tell at the pub.
Thank you for the tour as well. Thank you. Yeah, super interesting.
But it's a library. Museum. So like level 1 museum.